views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am Daren, Jaime, and if you're asking the question, what are the social justice forums about? Well, it's an opportunity to take a look at many of the inequities that people face. We promote civic engagement. We also have some very exciting guests, and we want to hear your point of view. So we encourage you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forums begins right now. And welcome back to the show. Equality for Flatbush is an organization that is actually geared towards dealing with some very specific issues, things like police accountability, affordable housing, and anti-gentrification and anti-displacement in Flatbush, as well as East Flatbush and Brooklyn wide. Now, the organization has two goals. One is to end NYPD murders, and two, to stop the displacement of low to middle income people from Brooklyn, New York. And joining us now and sharing more details, we are pleased to have the lead organizer of Equality for Flatbush, Imani Keith Henrys, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And when we look around, we talk about Flatbush, and you talk about Flatbush, East Flatbush, the whole area there. Give us your take on what you're seeing in the area and what you really want to focus in on.
So Equality for Flatbush is a Black Lives Matter group. We were founded in 2013, so right at the height of the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement. And what we were dealing with and seeing Brooklyn-wide was, one, more tenant harassment happening, and then and of course, more stop and frisk. And again, in our just little area, Flatbush, East Flatbush, Crown Heights, you know, we experienced like 6 either police murders or, or people being shot by the police and surviving, like between 2012 and 2018 for just our little area. So the way it breaks down for us is that our anti-displacement work is Brooklyn-wide, and it always has been, because our people are moving everywhere, and so we support homeowners and tenants in Bed-Stuy. You know, right now we have a bunch of buildings in Bensonhurst. So the main things around Equality for Flatbush is that our anti-displacement, our anti-gentrification work is a Brooklyn-wide endeavor. And it's, you know, from anything, right now we have 5 buildings in Bensonhurst, a lot of migrants of color that are going through like no heat right now and haven't had steady heat for 10 years in their building, and going after that landlord who happens to be one of the worst, you know, evictors. And this is how landlords evict tenants too, is making the conditions so bad that people want to get up and leave, and denying things like heat and hot water. We have a homeowner in Bed-Stuy that's been fighting a developer since 2016. We have a homeowner fighting Immigrant Bank in Flatbush. And then our police accountability works. Again, we're the Cop Watch team in the community, in the neighborhood. We rapidly respond when people are killed. You know, we went and started a search for like community stories to like dispel this whole myth of suicide by cop for, you know, Idris Pierre that was just killed in Crown Heights. That's kind of work that we do. We also like have rapidly respond around people that are in emotional distress. I happen to be a social worker. We've worked with other social workers that we're an alternative to 911. So we've gone and helped people go to the hospital or help counsel a family of what to do. And that, you know, like, or do safety plans for just, you know, folks in domestic violence situation, all of that kind of stuff, so that people feel more self-reliant and not afraid that if I call 911, I could be shot and killed, or my loved one could be shot and killed.
So let me ask you this. When we talk about Flatbush and we talk about Brooklyn, we know that the new mayor-elect, Eric Adams, I should say actually sworn in now, comes from the area. When we talk about the issue of police accountability, knowing that he has a police background, how optimistic are you that you'll be able to see some reform with regards to accountability with the New York City Police Department?
So Eric Adams has unfortunately been a target of ours uh, since 2015, like formally. We protested at a real estate summit that he was one of the keynote speakers at the Brooklyn Museum, under our coalition that we created with other groups in Brooklyn called the Brooklyn Anti-Gentrification Network, BAN. And so what we have always come to understand about Eric Adams is, one, that he is pro-development, takes lots of money from real estate industry. So did de Blasio. I mean, this is, so many other politicians do this too. That he has been key. I mean, he gives tours to like real estate developers and all of that kind of stuff. Like he has been, he's been culpable in the situation around displacement in Brooklyn. That is just a fact. That is just true. And a lot of the folks that come to us have already like tapped into their council person or the borough president and all of them. And they come really because we're like a last ditch effort as a direct action group to try to win justice. I think the other piece around policing is that again, 2020, he didn't side with us as protesters of the uprisings that were going on in Brooklyn. People were being beaten in the Bronx. People were being beaten in Brooklyn. He would get on and, kind of like, say, I'm for these kind of protesters, but not these kind of protesters, when people are on the sidewalk getting beat up by the cops. So we haven't had this experience, like we don't have lived experience, just with direct honesty, of him being for social justice for Black people in Brooklyn or people of color in Brooklyn or Brooklynites in general. We just don't have that experience.
Has he given you any response as regards to any of the issues that you've raised? What has been his direct response to you?
I would say that when I have engaged with Eric Adams, it has not necessarily been a communicative conversation. It's really like similar to what happened. I mean, like we posted that his reaction to the new city council folks coming in, or the city council in general coming out against solitary confinement, and the way that he's talk about people is exactly that way for a lot of us. If you're more progressive than him, his whole thing is like, why won't you talk to me alone? Don't put things out on social media. How dare you? That's like been his piece. I'm actually like in a whole Facebook discussion right now about what he said about low wage workers, that the people are like not skilled. And how can you say that when people are desperately, finding work wherever they can? We, for 22 months, we worked on a mutual aid project where we did rental assistance, groceries every month, for hundreds of people Brooklyn wide. Why would you ever say that? We fed nurses, we fed bar owners, restaurant owners, tenants, homeowners. Like it was just our people that needed groceries, needed financial aid, needed like other forms of mutual aid. We had like people gathering air conditioners for elders. So to even while we're in this incredible economic crisis, to talk about anybody that's working, thank goodness. So many people have been laid off. Why would you go and have this ridiculous understanding, especially for migrants of color, that somehow we're unskilled when sometimes we're just getting whatever is available to us because maybe we don't have the credentials, maybe we're not documented, whatever. So again, a whole debate is going on right now of like, do you not know who we are in Brooklyn? Do you not know who are New Yorkers? Why would you ever say that? When the minimum wage is not even, it's as of this month, it's $13 an hour in New York City. Who can feed a family on that? Who can take care of themselves on that? It was just utterly disrespectful.
Right. So now you got plenty of people who have this wage and they are living in affordable housing. I know affordable housing is something that you talked about that the organization would like to see carried out and done better. We're talking about a whole lot of development that's going on across New York City and the need for more affordable housing. But there's also critics on the other side who say, listen, affordable housing is definitely necessary. But if you're ever going to improve the economic impact, if you're ever going to improve the quality of life across the city, we're going to have to do some more development. And they point to places like Brooklyn, they point to Harlem, and even the Bronx and the South Bronx as perfect instances of how they can improve that. But we also know these are areas that have been highly occupied by people of color.
So we make a very clear distinction that gentrification is not happenstance. It is a concerted effort. It is the real estate industry. It is the local and federal government. It is an understanding. It is a global phenomenon that we talk about, that it's racist because the impact on communities of color are completely different than other neighborhoods. And that is very true, that Park Slope isn't getting developed all over the place in the same way that, say, Flatbush is. They're not being renamed and rebranded at Prospect Lefferts Garden or Ditmas Park like Flatbush is. We can talk about all we're just popping up, seeing all these weird names in our neighborhood as a rebranding to usher in more gentrification. The truth of the matter, what we say is we want 100% affordable housing. There is no need to build luxury housing to then, say that we get a few slots, and it's still unaffordable. We've documented in our neighborhood about you need to have great credit and are able to spend $1,700 on a studio in one of these new buildings. We're just really? You need to be able to spend close to $2,000 on a studio apartment in Flatbush? It's just ridiculous. So what we really talk about is that, New York is being destroyed culturally, socially, economically, linguistically, because of gentrification. They are totally making it more like a homogeneous, if you're not rich, if you're not, incredibly middle class, and you're not white, which again, I'm proud that Hasidic Jewish folks, Black Caribbean folks, Latinx folks, it's Asian folks, are part of this anti-gentrification movement in New York City. It's wonderful. People are talking about affordable housing in a real way that isn't based on luxury, majority luxury, which also remain empty. There's so much talk about how many of these luxury high-rise that no one can afford are empty in the first place. So why build them? Why build them?
So let me go here and say, I heard you say it would be great to have New York City 100% affordable. How do you get to the place of being able to have affordable housing 100% across the city?
Well, we already have that. I mean, most of us wouldn't be here. I mean, the whole piece of rent stabilization, and we want to just talk about the fact that in other places like Boston or Atlanta, it's not affordable anymore, but people bought homes, right? And New York City, because of our density, population density, not everyone can afford a home, and not everyone, there's just, it's too big of population. So here we are, we're already in rent stabilized buildings, and those laws around rent stabilization is about that you're guaranteed a lease. That's permanent. You can pass it down and have succession rights. We're dealing with landlords that are doing everything they can to throw elders out of the building, and denying people the basic rights that they have. We already have all this rent stabilized housing that the laws state. I mean, I want to just be clear. They changed the succession rights laws that used to have a whole gamut, your uncle, your siblings, all of this sort of larger picture of what migrant families, particularly of color, look like to say like it's only now this nuclear family when so many of us were sponsored by an aunt or an uncle to come from another country? It's just ridiculous. So we've been fighting and actually winning these cases because they are meant to, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, that for white folks or non-Black folks can move into a rent stabilized building, get themselves all on the same lease. They might not even know they're rent stabilized. Meanwhile, people born and raised in the same building can't even get their child on the lease. That's what the racial discrimination that's going on, and that's what's pushing out people. And when I even mentioned Crown Heights, my goodness, to have like there are working class Hasidic folks that have been like at our demonstrations and thanked us for our work, because when we go in a building, it's still working class people, working and middle class people in Crown Heights.
And Imani, I want to jump in and tell you, at least ask you to share a little bit more, because when you talk about the work that you're doing, we talked about the issues, and these are some of the issues that is going on for equality for Flatbush. But there are resources that you provide that are available to the community to be able to assist them where they have these issues. So please share with our viewers a little bit about some of the resources that are available for people who may be going through right in that area.
We don't we do provide resources. We actually do. What we do is organizing. We're a direct action group. So we've saved 5 small Black businesses in Brooklyn based on direct action. And direct action can be a petition. Direct action can be protests and rallies. Like just getting the community by the might of the people. We've saved businesses. The same with like tenants. We're not just simply saying like, oh, these people don't have heat and hot water. We tell everybody to call and report. We talk about the stories, and like we are organizing with those tenants. So what we say to people, the best thing that folks can do is turn to their neighbors. If they feel the system has failed them, if they've already gone to every single politician and they can't get help, it's our neighbors. And we can just talk about like, oh my goodness, like whether it be a lawsuit or like, really frankly, like an emergency, eviction defense. For 5 days in 2020, we held a building where tenants were being illegally evicted during the pandemic for 5 days, 24 hours a day. We're still working with them. They now have a lawyer. They're in court against their landlord. Like that's the kind of work that we do, because we believe that we as people have power, and that from the 8-hour day to the rent stabilization to even the fact that Black people have homes was all done by community organizing, that we took care of each other. We have each other's back. We believe in revolutionary love and kindness, and that we rely on each other. And so we fight together and we win together.
Yeah. And so as you're working on some of your current campaigns right now, we know that housing is of importance, also police accountability. Where are you in terms of police community relations right there in the Flatbush area? How receptive is the NYPD when you have your concerns?
So in 2018, we street vendors in our neighborhood were being thrown off the block, even if they had permits. That we already know, like, the whole vendor movement in New York is like fighting for licensings, and like really getting to see that folks are like without their business owners, without brick and mortar. That's just the reality. And even statistically right now, since the pandemic, more people in New York are vending. More people are using that as a resource because because they can find work other ways. So our street vendor organizing, our lead folks were, particularly Spanish speaking vendors, and we did everything. We met with the city, we met with the NYPD. I mean, people like a Haitian elder is selling peanuts in little plastic baggies, and she's getting $100 tickets every single day. Every single day. So we did all the right things. I mean, we met with them, but we also did, a film. We also did petitioning in the neighborhood. Like as people worked, we had people say, do you know the icy that you're getting right now? This person got $1,000 ticket over this icy. And the whole people were like, oh, how dare you? Children were just like, you know, we've saved a site on the underground railroad in downtown Brooklyn. And regardless of how how much police presence might be at a demonstration, or how much, this was a 16-year struggle. We just got involved in 2019. We were able to win. We were able to win. Vendors are not being harassed in the corner of Flatbush and Church Avenue anymore. Like that's how we believe. We believe in, like, you can go through all the steps you want to, but you still need a grassroots campaign. Every single time that we have homeowners in court, we're still doing grassroots campaign. The landlords in court with tenants, we're still doing a grassroots campaign. That could even be like, it's very common that we're like in court when we could go to court, that we have court days and there are 4 different buildings or set of tenants that are in court on the same day. We go from courtroom to courtroom. People have each other's back. It's beautiful to see. We have our t-shirts on, Brooklyn's not for sale, and we go from courtroom to courtroom to take care of each other. It's just wonderful. And the same thing with the small Black businesses. Our tenants down the block come to surround Errol's Bakery. I mean, it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And that's kind of our thing. We're not reliant. Again, the 911, I've stood, I'm a social worker, I've stood, and told cops, please put away the shield. Please put away the spit bag. This is an 8-year-old. This is an 8-year-old that you're coming for. I've argued with the police about, I have 2 master's degrees. I've been in the social work field for over 20 years, and cops think they know more than I do about how to deal with someone that's in an emotional distress. Even though that household called us first and said, come here, because they didn't want that young person be shot and killed by the cops. Right. So I just want to say, like, our route is that, yes, we do those processes too, but we really focus on direct action and what the community can do, because that's how we've really won. That's what the experience we have.
Right. So how do neighbors have the opportunity to check in or to be a part of, like you say, going from courtroom to courtroom to courtroom? If I'm in the middle of a court case and I know that I've got to go to housing court, how do I get in touch with you to know that I can get this advocacy on my behalf?
Well, again, I want to be clear. We're not a nonprofit and we don't do advocacy work. We do organizing. And I want to just say this because the people leading the struggle is like, I'm not a street vendor. So the people leading the struggle, the people meeting with the city, the people doing the most talking are the vendors, street vendors themselves. So you can call us at 646-820-6039. You can go to our website. I think the piece of it is that, we want people to really feel that they have power. That's the whole point of gentrification and police violence, that we got someone off Rikers for 3 years because they survived a police shooting, 17 hours, Devontae Prensley, 17 hours of surgery. And they pinned the same thing, suicide by cop, all of the stuff. And the community, we took 3 years to do it. Charges dropped off Rikers Island because community came together.
Yeah. Well, Imani, thank you for the great work that you guys continue to do. I think that, I use the word advocacy, but really raising your voice and being present and prevalent in the community is what's needed in order to bring some stabilization and then also some awareness. And so thank you for sharing about the work that's going on with your organization, Equality for Flatbush, and glad to have you with us.
And thank you for having a social justice forum. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, we love activist media. So thank you for having me.
Hey, glad to have you. And want to let our viewers know, listen, we want you to stay with us. We got another special guest here on the Social Justice Forums. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scale of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Karla.
And welcome back to the show. Sanctuary for Families is New York's leading service provider and advocate for victims, survivors of domestic violence, sex trafficking, and other related forms of gender violence. Now, every year they empower thousands of adults as well as children to move from fear and abuse to safety and stability, transforming lives through a range of comprehensive services as well as advocacy. And joining us to share a little bit more now, we are pleased to be joined by the Deputy Director of the Bronx Family Law Project at the Sanctuary for Families, Karla George. And Karla, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It is an honor to talk to you and explain more about Sanctuary.
Yeah, I want to talk about Sanctuary because I think it's so important, especially in a time like this with the work that you do. We know that COVID has really caused isolation and people have to stay at home. And the possibility of the rise of numbers of cases of domestic violence and things like that. So, for a minute, just share with us a little bit about how this has actually impacted some of the work that you're doing.
Oh, sure. Well, as everyone knows, the pandemic hit in March of 2020. And so we immediately pivoted our services so that they would be remote services. One of the things that we did was we turned our hotline into a live hotline, and we had actual attorneys answering that hotline from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day, providing services for clients that needed it. In addition, we did our crisis intervention, safety planning, and case management via phone and video phone calls. We also changed our mental health counseling over to conversion of intensive full-day career training and remote learning. So the pandemic did hit everyone pretty hard. The numbers of domestic violence and filing of domestic incident reports increased astronomically. And that was because, as we assume, more people were home with no place to go and they could not leave their abusive partners or their abusive, whoever might have been abusing them. And I say that because it's just not intimate partner violence. And so Sanctuary decided to immediately change what we were doing from in-person to virtual.
Yeah. And so for someone who may not be so familiar with the work that you do, I know that you do a lot of advocacy and really helping out, particularly in the area of domestic violence and those areas in particular. Share with us a little bit about your organization.
Sure, absolutely. So Sanctuary, like you said, is the leading service provider for survivors of domestic violence and gender-based violence. And what we do is we provide a holistic approach to our services, which include legal services and counseling services. So once you come through our doors, we are there to help you with everything that may affect a survivor. As some people know, survivors are affected in housing. They are affected by their wages. Sometimes the abusive partners are what we call the moneyed spouse. And so it's our goal to have someone come in, and we are like a one-stop shop, if you will. So that person might be coming in for legal services, and they might find themselves referred to counseling or referred to our career readiness program. And that's how we assist survivors of domestic and gender-based violence.
So tell me a little bit more about the organization itself, because you do have a direct impact when it comes to these families' lives and really being able to intervene and bring stability. And share with us a little bit about that, because when you're going through a process, whether it's domestic violence or you're going through a process where the family has actually been broken up, there's a lot of instability there, and you do a good job of really trying to bridge that gap.
Yes, we do. So, like I was saying earlier, our goal is to protect not only our clients, but the family and put them on a path to stability. The way we do that is that when a client comes to us, they might be just experiencing, or what they feel like they're just experiencing are issues of domestic violence, which ensues fear. So they leave the home. What we do thereafter is we consult with them. And like I said, we might consider filing an order of protection on their behalf to make sure they're safe from their abusive partner. Then that would go into, what do we do if there are children involved? And if there are children involved, we would go into family court and or Supreme Court, and we would ask for a custody order, which would give our clients the right to make decisions on behalf of the child, and or they would have the right to have the child live with them primarily. That's to make sure that there is some stability, so the children know which parent they will be living with, which school they will be going to. That also provides stability for the clients, so that they know an abusive partner can't just come pick up their children from school. In addition, child support is very important. Most of the times, our clients rely on the abusive partner's income. What that entails is that we go into court, and while we're filing for custody, we will file for child support on behalf of the children to make sure that there's stability in the income, that these clients can continue to support themselves and support their children. And in addition, we might address visitation, how often the children are going to see each parent and what that is going to look like, whether it's going to include day visits, whether it's going to include overnight visits, and a lot of different things play into that. If your abusive partner, for example, has an issue with either drugs or alcohol, there might be a suggestion or an application for there to be supervised visitation. So there's many different levels of legal work that we do within the family law realm, and it's really fact specific, and it depends on the client's circumstances. But what we do is that when a client comes in, we provide that holistic service to make sure that we're touching on all of those points to get them on a path of stability.
Yeah. And so I want to just take an inside look to your organization, because when we see the work that's going on when it's regards to domestic violence, we know that there can be some contention there. But when you're talking about families and they're going through, whether it's divorce or the custody, it's not always contentious, is it?
It is not always contentious. In some instances, we get clients that have been separated from their abusive partner for quite some time. And in that respect, we have people that contact us and say, I have been separated and I would like to apply for a passport, for example, but I need an order to do that. Is that something you can help me with? Or we've had instances where the abusive partner agrees to a divorce. So it's not, like you said, we don't have to go to court and go to many court appearances and sit in front of a judge. We can do something and settle the case on behalf of them. So it's not always contentious, and we really don't try to make it contentious. We really just want to help the clients. And like I said, get the clients on a path where they can be self-supporting.
What are some of the greatest obstacles you're facing now, given the fact that we're in this COVID environment? I know a lot of people are talking about how organizations have been impacted. So I want to take the time to ask you, how have you been impacted in this COVID climate?
It was really a struggle for our clients to pivot to virtual services. One of the things that Sanctuary is infamous for is being that place where you walk into our office and you feel like it's your second home. We, as far as even the way our offices are decorated, it's very welcoming to our clients. We have playrooms for the children when they come into the offices. And because we provide that holistic service, you might come to see me, but you might see another service provider walking through the hallways that you want to say hi to. And that really changed, considering that we couldn't see our clients in person and we couldn't not see potential clients in person. And so it affected our relationships in that way. What we did in order to make that a little easier for everyone, not just the clients, but also the attorneys, we do develop these relationships with our clients, is that we tried to do everything by video. And so it wasn't so removed as doing it by phone. We also, like I said earlier, we changed all of our services to remote services. And the way that it's affected us more recently is the back and forth of COVID. Are we going back into the office? Are the courts open? Things of that nature. And so we've been advising clients to continue to contact us virtually. We have been assisting with the courts being half open. And that means that you can't always just go into the court and get a petition drafted. So we have been assisting in that regard, but it's been pretty trying on us to correspond with our clients in this virtual way. So we try to accommodate that the best way that we can.
Talking to some of our legal correspondents that we have here on the show, we always talk about how the court system has been impacted. The fact that you've got a backlog of cases you had before COVID even happened. Now with COVID, you have an increase of cases, and with the possibility of domestic violence cases rising during COVID, really getting in front of a judge and really getting some resolution can sometimes be delayed. Has there been any frustration on your part or the organization in terms of just, having to now deal with even more delays in the court system, or have you been able to bypass that because of the severity of the cases that are coming before you?
And in the beginning of the pandemic, we were, the courts were closed except for emergency applications, which included our orders of protection. There was a lot of frustration, not only from us as a service provider, but also from our clients, because what one may deem an emergency, someone else may not. And that is what was happening with the courts. People were not seeing their children. Abusers were using COVID-19 as an excuse not to give the children back to our clients. Some people even left the jurisdiction to go to a safer place because of COVID-19. And so when we put those applications in, some of them were denied as not being emergencies. And we had to explain that to the clients. That's one of the hardest part of our job, is telling the clients that, the court said no, or we don't have a way right now to assist you further. But there was a lot of delay with the courts. As of right now, I still have cases that were open before the pandemic started. And that also affects us, because if we don't close our cases, we can't take on new cases. So it's really been a hard time with the courts being backlogged, and there's adjournment dates that are 4 months out. So it makes it really hard. But as the courts do open, they have been more open to what we call emergency motions, where we get in front of a judge a little bit sooner than as if we filed a regular petition or motion. So they've been more open to that, but it has been hard for our clients and us as well.
Yeah. So I want to let you share with us a little bit about the Family Law Project. We want you to share with our viewers the work that goes on there.
Sure. The Family Law Project we are about 30 attorneys throughout New York City, and we serve all 5 boroughs. And what we do is we provide legal services and family law, which includes, like I said, custody, child support, divorce, paternity, and that also includes the orders of protection. And like I said, we are a holistic approach. So if you come to us with a family law issue, then we do make referrals within our organization and outside of our organization. But the legal services in general, in the Family Law Project, are focused on those specific areas of law.
And so when you have clients, obviously the first thing that you want them to do is have this assurance that everything's going to be well and they're going to be well taken care of. But I do know that for somebody just walking through the door, sometimes that rapport and that relationship can be sometimes hard to develop given the fact of the circumstances that they come from. Talk to us about how you're able to navigate that and actually able to, get that relationship going, so that way you can be able to better serve your clients.
Sure. Survivors of domestic violence don't present in one way, and that's very important for all of us to remember. Some of the domestic violence survivors sometimes present as they don't understand. They don't think that we can help them. They've been abused by the system. They haven't been provided with services, but they come to us as a last resort. And so for me specifically, to build that relationship with them, first, I explain that I am here to help. You are at a safe place. This is what I came here to help you. I came to this area of law to help you. And that kind of eases it. But if I'm not able to make that connection with just that information, then what I do is sometimes I even share personal stories, because even though we are attorneys, we are advocates, we all have a story. And sometimes when I share a little bit of a personal story with a client, then they understand that she does understand me, she does get it, and they start to open up a little bit more. So that's how I approach the situation. And most of my clients, we are now we're friendly. I know their children. I know when they, have a new job. I know when they are in a new relationship. And that's because we start to share on more of a personal level, because these issues are personal. Family law is very personal. It touches on all of the different aspects of your life. So it's important to me to know my clients and for them to trust me. And it's important for them to know that they can trust me. And so that's why I'm a little bit more personable in the work that I do.
Yeah. And so when you talk about caseload and the amount of people that you can take on, I mean, in order for you to be able to take on new people, as you said, there's got to be this departure of some of the old cases. So have you been able to get to a place where you can take on new clients if they're coming through your doors?
Yes, more recently, as I stated earlier, the courts have been more open, and the courts are really geared towards closing that backlog of cases. So we have been conducting trials virtually, which has been a small feat, but we've gotten there. The technology can be hard on some days, but we've gotten to a point where we are conducting trials seamlessly. We are conducting conferences and therefore closing out some cases. Sanctuary has also tried to expand our legal services by hiring additional employees in order to take on new cases. So we have been able to take on new cases as of a couple of months ago. And remember, each program is a little bit different. So family law, our cases can range anywhere from 6 months to 5 years that we actually have a case pending in court. But immigration, for instance, their cases are pending also for a very long time, but it's not as labor intensive. So they can take on more cases as they come in. But sanctuary, we will make a way, especially if we feel that it is a dire situation and that you need the help right now. If I cannot do it, then I will find someone in the organization that can help.
Mhm. And you have a variety of different lawyers, and share with us a little bit about the lawyers that you have under your umbrella and the work that they do.
Sure. So in addition to the Family Law Project, we have the Anti-Trafficking Initiative, and they deal with a lot of issues with LGBTQ. And we also have the Courtrooms Advocates Project, and that is a project where we get law students to go into court and actually service survivors of domestic violence by assisting them in getting orders of protection. I was actually part of that program when I was in law school, and that's how I found Sanctuary. That program helps so many people, as well as it trains law students for this type of work. We also have the Courtroom Advocates Project 2, which assists students in college on Title IX cases. We have the Immigration Intervention Program, which assists clients with immigration issues. So that is just some of our programs that we have that are our legal programs that we assist survivors of domestic violence.
And so for people who want more information or to be connected, or if they heard something today that really resonates with them, what can they do in terms of contacting you and getting connected with services?
Sure. They can contact Sanctuary for Families online. You can go to our website, and that is www.sffny.org. We also have a hotline that you can call, and that information is listed on the website. And you can also reach us through calling any of the family justice centers here in the Bronx. That number is 718-508-1220, and they will connect you not only to Sanctuary for Families, but other services for survivors of domestic and gender-based violence.
Well, Karla, I want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us and the great work that's going on behalf of so many families and really advocating for so many people. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, I want to let our viewers know too that unfortunately we are at the end of our show. I want to thank you for watching today and being a part. We hope that you enjoyed this edition of the Social Justice Forums, and we want to let you know that you can catch the Cablecast right here on BronxNet's channel 67. And if you want to join in the conversation, you're always welcome to join in on social media, or just join us next week for another show as we elevate the conversation, bring you some very thought-provoking guests and some information that can be of assistance to you. I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and thank you for watching the Social Justice Forums.